This is the Illimitable Experience podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Illimitable Experience podcast. If you're watching this video, like this video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. We are posting great content regularly. With that, today we have as our guest Amira. Hi Amira, how are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Amira, can you just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Amira. I am a lawyer during the week and a yoga teacher during the weekend. I guess that's the best way to describe what I do. I'm also a Reiki Master and teacher. I also participate in the art of tarot interpretation. And very recently, I've also learned how to use the Hebrew pendulum for healing as well.
That's really interesting. Pretty much the life that I live. Lawyers on the weekdays and host on the weekends,
Yeah, very similar. I'm very glad that we found each other.
right? Now, now Amira, can you tell me what is, when I found your profile, there were a lot of titles on your profile, and I found it really
Mhm.
interesting as to what each of it stands for. Now, first, we'll talk about what is the Reiki healing that you are into. And can you tell us what it is and how is it different from other forms of healing systems?
Okay, well, let me start with a question. Have you ever heard of Reiki before you found my page?
I've only heard of it. I don't know much about it, but I've only heard, yeah, like nothing more.
Okay, so Reiki is a Japanese art of healing, and it was discovered by a doctor, Dr. Mikao Usui, in Japan somewhere around the 1920s. Now, he was a Christian and he was a professor at a university. So there was one time in a class where one of his students asked him, "How do you think that Jesus healed? What was it that was about Jesus that allowed for him to possess these powers of healing?" And that sent Dr. Usui into this far reaching environment where he had to discover how it was done. And he also truly believed that it was probably not something that was attached only to Jesus, but it could also be attached to Buddhism because Buddha was said that he could heal. So he went away and he studied and he continued to understand the mechanisms of Sanskrit. He learned Sanskrit in order to understand Buddhism and to understand how Buddha allowed for healing through his hands as well. He then decided to go into a cave on a mountain in Japan where he stayed for 21 days and meditated with no food or water. It was on that 21st day that he started to see these symbols appear in front of him. And he fell to the ground. And as soon as he woke up, he instantly felt full of energy and completely harmonized within himself. Considering that he had been meditating and fasting for 21 days, he felt full of vital force of life. So what then happened is he left the cave because he thought, he's probably acquired as much knowledge as he could. He left the cave and stumbled upon a rock. When he hurt his foot, he brought his hands on top of his foot, and as soon as he touched his foot, he healed it. So the pain
Wow.
stopped. So then he went down to the first village that he saw to ask for a plate of food, and he asked for an entire meal. Now, everyone knew Dr. Usui, so the owner of the restaurant said to him, "Dr. Usui, you shouldn't have a full meal. You've been fasting for 21 days. You're going to have trouble digesting, so have a smaller meal." But Dr. Usui was convinced that he had the power of healing and that he could have a full meal even if it was contraindicated. Now, as he was being served, one of the girls that was serving in the restaurant, which was the daughter of the owner, she'd been crying because she had a very bad tooth infection. And as soon as he put his hands on her face, the pain went away and the infection healed. So that was his third miracle of Reiki. He then went further into the school. He started teaching these techniques and these mechanisms. Obviously, it wasn't very well welcomed, I suppose, by the Christian community at the time. So then he went away and he started his own center. In the center, he started to heal, and all the healing was done back in the day, it was done a bit like a barter system. So he would do the healing for a meal, or he would do the healing for a service rendered to him. That later translated into paying money for a healing. But in reality, what it is, it's an exchange. So he is able to heal, but there's also an element of giving something back to him in order to value that healing. So as he continued the center and he started the center for healing, he also started to teach others how to heal.
Okay. So Mikao Usui founded the first Reiki clinic and school in Tokyo in 1922. Before he died, Dr. Usui taught several Reiki masters to ensure that his system would not be forgotten. Among them was Dr. Chujiro Hayashi, a former
Yeah.
naval officer who set up a Reiki clinic in Tokyo. Dr. Hayashi is
Mm-hmm.
credited with further developing the Usui system of Reiki by adding hand positions to more thoroughly cover the body. Dr. Hayashi also changed and refined the attunement, attunement
The
process.
attunement, yeah, the
Okay,
attunement
attunement
process. I'll
process.
explain that.
Using his improved system, Dr. Hayashi trained several more Reiki masters, including a woman named
Mrs. Takata.
Hawayo Takata. Mrs.
Yeah,
Takata was a Japanese American woman who originally went to Dr. Hayashi for healing. Upon learning the system herself, Mrs. Takata took Reiki home to the United States. Okay.
exactly. So Mrs. Takata initially went to damn, what is so yeah, so that's Mrs. Takata, and Mrs. Takata initially went to Dr. Hayashi for treatment because she had been diagnosed with something very severe and she had to go into surgery. But she was convinced that there was another form of healing out there. So she had been asking for alternative methods of healing, and she was recommended Reiki by Dr. Hayashi. So she went to have a Reiki session, and she kept going back and she kept going back. And eventually, she loved it so much and she believed in its power so profoundly that she also then became a Reiki 1 practitioner, Reiki 2 practitioner, and then she became a Reiki master and teacher. She then took that over to the United States and taught a lot of other people. Now, Dr. Hayashi, I believe, taught, Dr. Mrs. Takata taught 22 students before she passed away. Of those 21 students was my teacher, Cassie Conrad, and she's the founder of Change Works in Abu Dhabi. She studied straight under Mrs. Takata, and then I was attuned and I was brought into the Reiki world by Cassie. So I'm, in that sense, a fourth generation. So there's Usui, Hayashi, first generation, Takata, second generation, Cassie, third generation, Amira, fourth generation.
Generation. That explains the fourth generation as well. Amira, I have a few questions. You said that when Dr. Usui went to the hills, if we saw a few symbols of Reiki, so what are these symbols?
So these symbols are portals into the universal energy in which we live. So everyone is born with universal energy within themselves. Every baby, every soul that is brought onto earth has that universal energy and the capacity to be so intuitive and so in tune with nature that they simply don't need to speak. However, with growing up and being in society and being in concrete and being surrounded by not nature, we start to draw all of those things away from us. And then we go to school, we start to grow up, we understand that, we can't always tell what we think or how we feel. It's difficult to understand how people perceive you. So things like that made it quite difficult to maintain that level of universal energy within you and that intuition with the divine and that trust with the earth. So what happens is masters, Reiki masters, as I explained how they've been attuned from one to the other. Reiki masters are attuned to be able to regain the portals of that universal energy. There are certain symbols that we perform to open the portal. There are symbols that we perform to what we like to call supercharge the energy and the flow of energy. There are certain symbols that relate to the psychic, to the mental energy as well that we carry within our own body. And so there are different symbols that relate to different sides of this universal energy. But in essence, if you think of it as a portal, so it's essentially a portal. So if I were to do a symbol on my hands, I'm opening the portal through my hands in order to be able to charge a client that comes to me, for example, with Reiki, in order to be able to heal. Now, I'm
Hmm.
not transferring my energy onto them, but what I am is I'm a medium, I'm a channel for that universal energy to find me, and through me, because I'm attuned and I'm opened again, like a baby would be, you take that and you put it into the Reiki, the clients. So essentially that's what happens.
Okay. Dev, can we have a look at the symbols?
So the
Hmm.
symbols are quite sacred. And so the
Okay.
reason the symbols are sacred is because back in the day when they were taught, so the symbols are sacred, and it's not something that's, I mean, yes, they're on Google, but they shouldn't be shared so openly because they're such powerful symbols for those that are attuned to them. And so traditionally, the way that somebody was taught in the old classrooms, you wouldn't necessarily have the symbol in a book or drawn anywhere. The teacher or the master would have it on a piece of paper and then sort of just show it to the class and then put it away. And the way that you put it away, for example, my symbols, they're in a wooden box so that they aren't exposed to the elements. They aren't exposed to the rest of my day, basically, and the energy that I come home with, and so on and so forth. So the symbols are quite sacred for those that practice Reiki. We perform them on the clients as they come in, and when we perform the healing. But in terms of me being able to show you the symbols, it's not like the chakra system. However, you
Okay.
do raise a very good point with the chakra system. So the chakras and Reiki are very closely linked. However, they are completely separate disciplines. Reiki
Hmm.
is Japanese discovered, although it is said and it is believed that it was an element that has been with us and through universal changes for about 2,500 years. So we're talking as long as we've known humanity in how we know them. And so it started that long ago, and its roots are somewhere in Sanskrit.
Hmm.
The roots are somewhere in Sanskrit, it's somewhere in Buddhism, but Reiki and the chakra system are slightly separate, and they are slightly different to each other. So, Reiki, there are certain parts of the body where a practitioner will put their hands, and those aren't necessarily your chakras. You do
Hmm.
have practitioners that do practice where the chakras are. However, that is the beauty of energy. Energy through chakras and energy through Reiki is a very similar form of energy healing. You can combine the two, but they are two separate institutions. They're two separate disciplines. The chakra system comes from the Hinduism and the Indian belief of and practice of yoga, whereas
Hmm.
Reiki is the Japanese technique of healing. So the two of them
Hmm.
work very, very well together. But the chakra
Hmm.
system and its
It's different.
symbols and its Sanskrit, yes, they are different.
Right. Uh, now, so these symbols that you talked about, is it like very sacred? Has been given the symbols?
Yes, they are. They are quite sacred. So
Hmm.
like I explained, I have my symbols and my books and the way that I
Oh,
learned how to draw the symbols. I have
wow.
them like neatly tucked away in a little wooden box. There are certain powerful symbols, and the reason we maintain them as separately as we do is because they are charged. The symbols themselves are charged. So if we were to sort of leave them out to the open, some of
Hmm.
these symbols are they're meant to infiltrate various layers of and dimensions of time and space. So you can do Reiki at a distance, for example, and there's a special symbol that opens that portal into all the different dimensions. If you have a symbol like that on a piece of paper, kind of open in the middle of a living room, it's charged, so you are almost at risk of having that portal constantly open, and energy's coming through it, energy's going through it. If I come home from a very bad day and I have this portal that's open in my home, who knows what I'm sending what to? So they
Hmm.
are sacred because they're charged. They are portals. They're avenues, and they're little vortexes into dimensional space and time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Amira, as a Reiki master, when do you suggest or when do you realize that a person who I'm dealing with or a person who I'm talking to, is in deep, emotional distress and needs this Reiki healing? Like if someone would come to you and ask that, should I take Reiki healing from you or any other Reiki master in that case? What would your answer be to that?
That's a beautiful question. And I think the way that I would answer that is Reiki comes to you when you're ready for it. So, because we're all born with Reiki, and Reiki is somewhat silenced during our social construct, if somebody were to come to me and say, what is Reiki? Or can I have Reiki? Or how does it work? Or if they just simply mention Reiki or they're interested in it, that's how I know they're ready. Not only are they ready, they're asking for it. Their physical being is asking for it through their voice. They probably don't understand why they're asking me. Or if, for example, like you might actually be a perfect candidate for a Reiki treatment because you found me, you found Reiki, you're curious about it, you're asking about it. So that's telling me that you are ready to accept Reiki back into your life. You are ready for me to be able to gift you that energy field that you already have, but I'm attuned to opening it up for you as well. So people walk around with a lot of energy, and there's a lot of, when people say, oh, I feel heavy today, or today's a great day, it's so light and it's so airy. So that element of energy I feel. I can't explain how I feel it, but I feel it. And I see aura colors around people, and I've seen them my entire life. It wasn't until my mother, so my mother is also a Reiki master and teacher, and she became attuned, I think, 20 years ago. Um, it wasn't until she was studying for her Reiki certification and her Reiki attunement that I realized people study auras. People have to study to understand what colors around people mean. They have to study how to receive messages. They have to study how to understand that different exchange of energy. Whereas it just came naturally to me. So there have been many Reiki sessions where, I mean, I hope this doesn't sound bizarre, but they've been many Reiki sessions where I'll see somebody's grandmother, and their grandmother is telling me to give that person a message. And I will feel like it's not a message for me. It's not my grandmother. It's not my energy, my grandmother's energy, or anyone from my side of the family. This is this person's energy. And every person has a bit of other people's energy attached to them. So you will have your younger brother's energy attached to you. So I wouldn't be surprised if I were to do a Reiki session with you, that if your younger brother, either you're protecting him or he looks up to you, I wouldn't be surprised if I were to feel and maybe even describe your younger brother to you, because his energy is so defined in my mind that I'm receiving that message. I'm receiving that energy shift. I'll give you an example. There was once a time where I did see somebody's grandmother, and I couldn't really see the shape or her face, but I did see what she was wearing, and she was holding a little pot of custard, or she was holding a pot of dessert. And I didn't understand what that meant. So I thought maybe I shouldn't describe it to this person because maybe he won't understand. Maybe this isn't a message for him. Maybe I'm just seeing people or energies that he's picked up. But then I had this very intense, intuitive feeling that I had to say to him, you're doing okay. And whatever it is that you're doing, you keep doing it. I know that you've got doubts with it, but don't stop because you're on the right path. So then he asks me, I that's exactly what I needed to hear, but how did you know to say that to me? And I said, look, I don't know if this is somebody that you will relate to, but there's a lady who's wearing, so and so, and she's holding a little pot of dessert, and she's showing me that she's near you. she's showing me that she's here with you. And she's telling me, I'm getting a very deep intuitive feeling to tell you to keep going and to not give up, because she knows, or she feels, that you are doubting what you're doing, and you're thinking of stopping, and she's telling you don't, and keep going. And he burst into tears because it was his grandmother, the way I described her. And she would always have like a little pot of yogurt or custard or something that she would eat, and then she would give him when he was a little younger. So he completely related to that. And that is an element of Reiki I simply cannot explain. I don't know if it's connected to the Reiki. I don't know if it's the portals that I'm opening with Reiki that's allowing me to receive these messages. But I do receive these messages, and I'm not the only one. I am not the only one. That so Reiki allows for that openness, and it allows to make a connection with those that have passed. And it allows you to make connections with energies that live with you, energies that you bring with you, and
Hmm.
energy that attach themselves to you without you even realizing.
And that's a really interesting thing that I would like to point out is that, again, since we're talking about energies and the attunement of our energies,
Yeah.
I think this is I don't think this is a coincidence that we are wearing the same t-shirt as well. So in all the episodes that I've recorded, I always wear the same t-shirt, and it's
Okay.
also a full sleeve t-shirt if you can see it clearly. Yeah,
Yeah.
so same.
Flat,
Yeah,
full
so
sleeves. And we're
uh,
both, you're studying law, and I'm a lawyer, and you're just going into arbitration. I practice arbitration. This is not a coincidence.
right. Um, Now, Amira, how does this Reiki healing takes place? Like, do you have to be in contact with the person, or is there a room, like like how therapists have a room, right? Or
Hmm.
or is it like, can you do virtually? How does this take place? What is the process like?
So I can do it virtually. There is such a thing as Reiki at a distance. The best way that it's, I mean, even that's great. Even Reiki at a distance works phenomenally. And there have been times where I was doing Reiki at a distance for somebody in Australia, and I described their husband to them without me even seeing them. I didn't even know who they were. So that portal of energy, that openness that Reiki allows for you to connect with others on a different dimension, at a different level of existence, it's powerful even when it's at a distance. But if it is in person, it depends on the therapist. Some centers have the long massage beds. Other people have it in their home. I personally have it in my home. I'm looking at my bed right in front of me. And so it's a massage table that I've cushioned with, comfortable blankets. The client lies down on it face up. And then there are two methods of doing it. Some people like for the hands, if you can see here, some people like for the hands to sort of hover, and
Hmm.
then you can feel it. And that's the beauty of it. You can feel the heat coming from the practitioner's hands. Other people like for that touch to be firm and to be reassuring. And it provides an element of comfort when you feel that heat and that soft touch on your skin and on your body. There are different parts of your body that you go through. They correspond a little bit to where the chakras live as well. But you go down to the feet, and then you have an option to turn the client over if it's easy for them to do so. I tend to not do it because the clients that come, it's just the bed is a little fussy to get somebody to switch over and to move so I tend to just leave them there. However, I've got two layers of a cover. So I bring my hands in between the two layers, and then I can touch the back of that person. So that person, the client, doesn't have to be discomforted by turning around or me having to move them. But there are 7 positions traditionally. You can obviously do this differently, but traditionally, there are 7 positions on the body on the front, and then the corresponding on the back. Now, you can also practice Reiki as a group. So you can have a group of practitioners on one client. And it works wonderfully for cancer patients. It works wonderfully for patients who have terminal illnesses. because you have different hands on you, different vortexes of energy, different dimensions being opened. And then each practitioner will have their hands in the designated spot, and then others will mirror them, or one goes underneath the client, one goes on top of the client. So it's also beautiful when you have different practitioners around you. But in essence, it's a massage table with comfortable blankets, a pillow for the head, and then it's like a massage without the oils
Without
and
the
without the
touching.
pushing. Yeah.
Right. Amira, you have been doing this for so many years, and I believe that you must have impacted other people's life as well by doing this. So, what was in your experience? What has been your experience so far being a Reiki master? Like, how have you changed people's lives, or how have you treated people's illnesses, or whatever problem they came up with to you? And did they leave
This
like,
is a
did they leave happily that, oh my God, that Amira cured my, whatever problem or depression, anxiety, whatever problem they came up to you with?
this is a lesson in humility. I like to think that Reiki changes people's lives. I don't think I personally do it. I think Reiki does it. Reiki definitely changes lives. There have been friends who, as soon as they discovered Reiki and I practiced Reiki on them, and I shared Reiki with them, they've now all of a sudden become more spiritual. They've healed past relationship traumas. They're in a very healthy and stable relationship now. Um, People have overcome the fear of public speaking. They've overcome their inhibition to um, become popular on Instagram, for example. They are, I started with somebody who had 10 or 12,000 followers because he didn't feel like anyone would listen. He felt like he was undervalued. He didn't have that strength of self-esteem. And with one or two Reiki sessions, I think he's 80,000 followers at this stage. And he's doing paid promotions, he's doing paid advertisements. So what Reiki does is it removes those blocks. It removes the words that society gives you that tells you you're not good enough, that tells you you're not lovable, that tells you that you're not valued or you don't deserve something. Reiki restores you back into that energy that you were born with, the energy that you deserve all the goodness that comes to you. You deserve love. You deserve everything that you've dreamed of, and you deserve to achieve it, not just dream of it. So in general, Reiki has bettered almost everyone's life, even if it means better sleep, or even if it means better digestion, even if it means, a little more self-value and self-determination to go out there and to do what it is that you love. And it opens doors. I think that's the best way I can say that. Reiki opens up the blockages and anything that's sitting within you that doesn't belong to you, but you've taken it on because society has given it to you.
Hmm.
Reiki removes that. It takes away things that no longer serve you. And my teacher, Cassie, she would very, very convincingly say, Reiki does exactly what it's supposed to do. So when somebody comes to me for Reiki, I don't sit with them for an hour and ask them what their issues are. I'm not a therapist. But
Hmm.
when they come and they sit on the table at the end of the hour or half an hour, depending on the treatment, I am able to say to them, this is where I think you're having trouble. This is where I think you're being challenged. I'm being given these messages by the universe, by people that are protecting you, by energies around you, your guardian angels. I'm telling you through them that you can do it and you should do it and you can be loved and you should be loved and you should go out there. And so it alleviates that sense of self-doubt, and it allows you to open up. It allows you to sleep better. And I think traditionally Reiki was for anxiety, it was for pain, it was for injuries, it was for illnesses that are, difficult to treat with regular modern medicine. Now, Reiki is is a complementary healing method. It's not an alternative. Reiki works very well with modern medicine. It works very well with other forms of healing, acupuncture, things like that. So Reiki on its own is a very powerful tool, but it's also a complementary device for other forms of healing, other forms of medicine.
Hmm. Yeah, Amira, now that you have talked about Reiki as well, there's something, another thing that I've noticed in your profile, that you were doing this combination of colors plus yoga. Now, that is
Yes,
something that I came across for the first time as well. Like in the case of Reiki, at least I had heard that there exists something that is called Reiki. But over here, I came across for the first time. So, what is this combination of color and yoga that you are doing?
so I can't actually take the credit for that. Now,
Hmm.
the way that started, the way the art of SoulFusion started was I had a student in my class, and she recently opened an art studio called Wild Paint House in Alcoz. And the beauty of the studio is you can paint anything and you can paint it anywhere. If you go to the studio, which I highly recommend, you have painting on the ceiling, on the stairs, on the desk, on the computer. You can do anything you want. You can go in there and splash, or you can do spin art on a piece of canvas. So it's such a beautiful experience, and it's a liberating experience. So she got in touch with me and she asked me, how do you feel about combining yoga with art? And I thought, what are you talking about? I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know I wouldn't know where to begin. But then I said, you know what? Yeah. So initially, the idea was going to be to actually use paint on your hands on the yoga mat. But then we discovered that the yoga mat's a little too slippery. Then we went um, into the thought process of what has color and is in yoga something that we can use. So then I thought chakras. Each chakra has a color. Each chakra represents a different part of the body. There are meditations, thousands of meditations for each parts of the chakras. There are yoga poses for each of the chakras to activate them. Why not combine all of this together? So that's exactly what we did. We're still doing this. It's being held once a month at Wild Paint House. And essentially the idea is that you meditate on each of the chakras, all seven of them. You have a little palette of colors with all seven chakras. Well, I'm lying, it's not seven, it's six chakras, and I'll explain why in a second. So, six colors for the seven chakras. And then what we do is we go through the purpose of the chakra, the location of the chakra, what it does, what you feel when it's blocked, what you feel when it's overactive. Then we meditate a little bit with the sounds that reverberate with that chakra energy and the same sort of frequency and certain words and mantras, so to speak. Along with hands and mudras and doing different things with your hands to for each of the chakras. Then we go into a very, very, very soft yoga flow that takes you into that chakra. So, for example, if we're doing the root chakra, which sits at the base of your spine, then we would probably do a bit of sitting down meditation. But then you can also stand up and do a mountain pose. You can also do a chair pose because you're drawing that chakra down into the earth. So, there are various poses in yoga that activate those chakras. So after the slight little flow of yoga, they go back onto their mat and they have a canvas. And then if we're doing the root chakra, for example, I'll turn the music up and the music is a beautiful violin and piano, and it's very expressive. It's like the interstellar soundtrack, it's very moving. So then I turn the music up and then I just let them paint. There's no guidance. There's no paint a circle, paint a square. I just say to them, pick up the red and just paint. And then as they're painting, I'll continue the mantras. I will sort of repeat to them the meditation. I will repeat the certain words, the phrases that activate that particular chakra. Now with the colors, The colors of the chakra are the colors of the rainbow, and it's in the same sort of order. There's one color missing, and I was just about to tell you what it was, but I'm actually going to invite you to the next Wild Paint House Art of Soul Fusion session, and then you can see then what color is missing. And
Sure.
I'd like to see how you create that color, and for you to understand why that color is not given to you, but it's a color that you create. And I think that if anybody else is interested to know which of the colors is missing, then come on down to Wild Paint House.
I would like to come on on this location and see for myself what it is. But
You should, and
yeah,
I invite you, and I extend the invitation to you and the whole team, everyone that's helping with the production of this.
thank you for the invitation. Amira, so does this have like a so you said that this credit does not completely go to you. Um, but is it like a real art form or a yoga form that has been introduced in the recent times? Because right before this podcast, I was doing a little bit of research on the types of yoga, and in the West, there is this bizarre type of yoga that they invented, which is called beer yoga or yoga with beer, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and I found it very bizarre that people are adding their own touches to the yoga, which is
Yeah.
not authentic. So does this practice is a recent time, or it has just been invented by you and your friend in the recent times?
To be honest, I think yoga has become such an integrated part of society. You're
Mm,
talking about beer yoga. I've heard wine yoga. I've heard about goat yoga.
yeah.
I've heard about puppy yoga. And to be honest, I'm now currently studying to combine yoga with horse therapy. So horses are very well known to why are you smiling? I feel like this is something that, again, you're going to say this isn't a coincidence.
This is a coincidence. I am a certified equestrian.
Oh my goodness me. Look at this. This is not a coincidence. We were meant to meet each other.
Oh
So
my
that's what
God.
yeah. So I'm learning because even though horses, they have chakras, all animals, everything, every living thing has chakras. And I'm learning how to understand where on the horse's body the chakras are in order for humans to be able to relate to the horses and to connect their chakras with each other and to try and heal through horses. So horse therapy is something that's been, forever. And I think
Mm,
that yoga with horse therapy is it's not a new concept, and it definitely happens in Dubai.
mm.
There's a lady that hosts these sort of sessions at the Melia resort somewhere out next to Al Awir. And it's a beautiful experience. And that's when I discovered that this is something that I'd like to combine with the yoga teaching because
Mm.
it's such a beautiful way of relating and for opening your chakras through the help of animals and something as beautiful as a horse and something as majestic as a horse. And you being a certified equestrian, you must know this. A horse feels you before you even tell it what to do with the reins or your feet or whatever. It's that feeling, it's that connection that your heart chakra has made with the horse's heart chakra. It's that intuitive knowledge, that telepathy, that is Reiki, that exchange of information between you and the horse. That comes through the power of universal energy. So yoga allows for you to be able to do that. So why not compare it and why not combine it with a bunch of other stuff? I don't know how beer and yoga go together or wine and yoga go together, but there's definitely an element of creativity in yoga that you can connect through art and to be able to express. I mean, there's people journal through their yoga sessions all the time. And teachers, I think, mainly do this when they're creating a new sequence or when they're building a new flow. They'll stop every time they'll try out, like a different flow or a different sequence. They'll stop for a little bit and they'll write down how it feels because you want to be able to relate that back to your students. So in order to be able to help with just general day-to-day anxiety and day-to-day heartbreak and the stress of life and sometimes the unfairness of life, why not come to an art class where you can do a little bit of yoga for those who like yoga? There's a little bit of meditation for those who like sitting still. There's a little bit of art for people who want to express, but they can't find the words, because you don't need words in painting. You don't need words in art. And so it's just a beautiful way. And it's, to me, I think it's a great outlet for creativity and to be able to express yourself through the form of art. And the beautiful part of these sessions is halfway through. So when we get to about the heart chakra, I'll start to pick up some of the canvases and I'll interpret them. And the circle, the red circle in the middle with the blue on top, or the squiggly lines and what they each mean. And usually I'll pinpoint certain characteristics and certain personality traits of these people. And then they fall in love with their paintings so much more because they realize how much of their own inner strength and their own inner battles are expressing themselves through their hand and through the paint. So that's when it becomes therapeutic. It's the therapy of art through yoga and through meditation and through the discipline of chakras. So that's how I think. And it's not new. I don't think it's new. I don't think that I'm the first person um, to have created something like this. I, I I'm pretty sure there's other weirder forms of yoga expression, but yeah, it's something that just came out of trying. It was totally not planned. We went in thinking it was going to look like something else. It came out completely differently, but it worked out so well in the end.
Now, and the name that you came up with, Soul Fusion. So, is it really
Ah,
named Soul Fusion, or is it just you have named it?
no, so I named my yoga sort of character, let's say, my brand. I think that's the term kids are using nowadays. So my brand is called Soul Fusion, and again, I cannot take credit for that. Um, the owner of the very first yoga studio that gave me a chance when I first became a teacher, we were going back and forth with trying to figure out what to call my classes, because my classes are slightly different to a traditional yoga class. There's elements of breathing, there's elements of the asanas and the yoga, and there's elements of meditation. But we flow to Eminem, and we flow to DMX, and we flow to salsa, and we do our yoga to to sort of to jazz, and so the music is slightly different. The flow is a little bit different. It's I've taken my favorite parts from all of my teachers and I've combined them into one. So coming to a class where you have all of these elements fused together, it felt natural for us to call it something with, something with the soul, because that's what I'm trying to help with.
Mm.
So the owner and I were sitting down one day and we were just giving each other different names. I knew the word soul was going to be in there.
Mm.
So I think initially we called it soul healing, and then I called it soul something. And then it was actually the owner of the Crimson Chambers in Dubai, the yoga studio. She was the one. So I came up with soul, and then she said fusion. And I said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what it is. It's a
That's
fusion of
perfect. Yeah.
everything for the soul." So again, a lot of my current appearance and my current brand and the way that I am has a lot to do with the community that I surround myself with.
I think you've been doing great as well, because I think since we started following each other, every day you have been posting your videos of your
Yeah.
yoga. So I think you're doing very well in that case as well on the social media, because consistency becomes really important on social media, whatever the brand that you're trying to create on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And I keep trying. I also even with all this Reiki and all this meditation, I also have moments where I think, oh, no one's watching, nobody cares, nobody wants to see this. There's so many other yoga teachers that are doing a better job. And then I think someone else out there is probably thinking the same thing. Someone else who can't touch their toes but wants to post something about yoga is thinking, I'm such a beginner, no one's going to watch me. Post. Even if you think no one's watching you, I promise you there's one person that looks at your posts and gives them courage to post themselves or to go out there and do something themselves. So every time I feel like, oh, no one's going to watch this, I think, yeah, but maybe, you know what, for those 3 people that like my videos all the time, thank you. I post for them. Those 3 people, but I post for them.
Right. No, but I think you should continue doing it. And I'm
Thank you.
really glad to see the post as well. Um,
Thank you.
Amira, I have a very strange question coming up in my mind because
Yeah.
uh, I believe you are an Arab, and
Yes.
I have never seen. I mean, my personal experience has been too short to comment on it, but I'll explain it, even more in depth. I have been in Dubai for nearly 2.5 years. Okay,
Hmm.
and my father has been here for nearly somewhere between 15 to 20 years. Okay,
Hmm.
but never has this topic come up that, okay, I saw one of my friend is an Arab, and he or she is into yoga, or they practice yoga, or something like that. So what is it that really inclined you to pursue this art, which is not so common? Maybe it has grown in the recent years that more Arabs are choosing this, yoga,
Hmm.
pursuing yoga. But what inclined you, and where did you learn yoga from? Did you have to come to India? And because I know there are
Hmm.
places in Uttarakhand where the yoga is taught for 200 or somewhat 300 hours, and then you become a teacher. So what pushed you to doing that?
Oh man, that's like 100 questions in one. So let's do this step by step. So the Arab thing. So I'm half Arab, half Romanian.
Mhm.
That doesn't give me a green light to do things that would be culturally uncommon. Now you are right, yoga is a little strange in terms of the Arab culture. However, there are there are quite a few teachers and there are quite a few Instagram pages that teach or that promote yoga in Arabic, and they teach it in Arabic. I think that the stigma comes from the fact that perhaps the yoga clothes are anti-cultural, and
Mm.
it could be that there's a stigma because of the exposure of skin or whatever it is that might create some form of, oh, yoga's, for not for us Arabs, or I don't know. um,
Mm.
I also think that there's also this conception that yoga is a religion, and
Mm.
for Arab Muslims it's I guess it becomes this is from personal experience. It becomes difficult to be able to speak to them about the physical practice of yoga because they think that we worship, like when we do a
Another
sun
god.
salutation, yeah,
Mm.
that we're worshiping this Krishna or who, whatever. So I think it's honestly, I think it's ignorance. I think it's the inability of a very indoctrinated culture from being able to accept that there are forms of exercise that may have had roots in religion, but the exercise itself has nothing to do with worshiping anybody. Um, I mean, in my house, I think you can see a few of the things that I have. I've got a Buddha that I'm looking at right in front of me. I've got Rama and Sita. I have uh, uh, like different deities in my house. And then I've got the Chinese three wise men, and I have bonsai trees and money trees and Japanese cupboards. And so it's just because I'm Arab doesn't mean that I can't learn from other cultures. And I think the Buddhist culture is a beautiful culture. And I think that the Indian culture, the yoga culture is a beautiful culture. And funny you mentioned Uttarakhand because that's exactly where I was about a year ago. I went to go to an ashram in Uttarakhand, the Dol ashram. And it was a retreat. It was a 1 week retreat with yoga and meditation inside the ashram, with the fire rituals. And so I went into an ashram and I participated in the rituals and the mantras and the singing and the fire rituals and all of that. It doesn't mean I'm not an Arab. It doesn't mean I'm not a Muslim. It means that I am partaking in somebody else's culture and I'm educating myself in the ways of the world. Um, I guess that answer, I don't know if does that answer your question about the
Ye-
Arabs and the culture?
Yes, yes, it does.
So I think there are a few, I mean, there are lots of ladies only classes. Those ladies only classes are, I'm hoping, taught by women, but they should be taught by women.
Hmm.
Those classes probably are aimed at women who are veiled, who wear a hijab. So they want to go practice yoga, but they don't want to do it with another man in the room because of the yoga clothes. And so why would I, if I was wearing a hijab, why would I have to wear uncomfortable clothing,
Correct.
baggy and loose, to go to a yoga class because there's a man? I'd rather go to a female only, wear a crop top, wear shorts, wear whatever I want to wear, practice the exercise, the yoga, and then
Hmm.
cover up and go back home. So there are many ladies only classes that cater to, I'm assuming, that cater to Muslim women and to Arab women who don't want to do yoga with another man in the room. And I completely understand that. So there is this openness of coming to a yoga class as an Arab, and it's definitely being catered to. But I guess you're right. I mean, I personally haven't seen a lot of yoga Instagram pages with Arab subtitles or
Hmm.
explanations in Arabic or anything like that. That would be an
Right.
interesting thing to look into. Maybe that could
Maybe
be
you can
your next
exploit that
interview.
niche. You can be the
I
pioneer of that niche.
Oh, I'm hardly the pioneer, but I think there is a girl who, I think her Instagram handle is yoga in Arabic or yoga bil Arabi or something like that. But it's
Hmm.
she teaches it in Arabic and she is a teacher in Arabic. So
Hmm.
it is known. And very recently, actually, I had a family member come to me because their doctor recommended that they go to yoga for their sciatica pain. And when I first became a yoga teacher about 4 years ago, my family thought I was crazy. And some of them even said, "Oh, what is this? You're studying to become a Hindu." And I just thought, I mean, this is my own family I'm talking about. And so it's the disparity of knowledge. I think it's the disparity of the exposure of it and this mental, I don't know where the stigma comes from. I don't know why I mean, I understand why they think it's a religion, but
Hmm.
you would think that in the modern world with Google, they could just Google it, realize it's not a religion, it's just a really good form of exercise, and let's just get through with it and fix your sciatica and come, let's go. So it's yeah, it is a little bit difficult to convince the Arab society, but honestly, a lot of girls in my class are Arab. A lot of boys, actually, most of the boys, if not all of them, are Arab. And so it's definitely opening up. It's definitely taking over a little bit.
It's a how should I put it? Maybe things will change, steadily. As in when, people
Yeah.
like you who speak up, who clear out the doubts that people carry around regarding this thing,
Yeah,
yoga.
and to people like you who give us a platform to be able to speak about it.
Uh, Amira, now we move on to the third part where yeah, another thing that you must have, and I don't want to be wrong over here when I'm speaking about it because it's quite a sensitive topic. Yeah. Amira, I also noticed in a profile that you had written the art of tarot. Now, I have
Mm-hmm.
heard what tarot is. It is, people do some reading using cards. I know this because there was a girl in my college back when I was doing my bachelor's of law. She brought this up and she also showed us how it is done. But she's said that it's a art of reading tarot, but it is a tarot reading and you have written the art of tarot. So what is it exactly?
So the art of tarot is just another form of saying a tarot reading. So it's the art
Hmm.
of reading tarot cards. And you'll notice that I'm starting to shuffle the deck of cards that I use for tarot. These
Hmm.
aren't the traditional ones, however. So Tarot is the reading of cards, and I'm sure that a lot of people have seen things like this. These can also be called angel guidance cards, oracle cards. So in essence, these cards, for those that believe in them,
Hmm.
they are simply an extension of energy. So when I shuffle these cards and I show them to you,
Hmm.
without telling me, there is one card in there that sticks out to you.
Okay.
You don't have to point it out, but I know that one of these cards sticks out to you. Now,
Hmm.
that card, if you were doing a reading session with me, that card represents something. So for example, was it this one?
No, it was the
No, can
first.
you tell
It was the first card. Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
one?
That one. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this card is the Empress. So the Empress represents divine feminine power. So perhaps this is a connection to a mother or a grandmother. This is a connection that you have to divine power. And this is also a way of telling you to rule your life with a sense of femininity. Maybe don't be so masculine all the time. Maybe think of things with compassion, come to them with love, come to them with kindness and the sense of compassion. So these aren't prophetic cards. I'm not telling you your future, but
Hmm.
your energy, there's a reason. There's simply a reason because there are no such things as coincidences. This card just fell. This card is the star, and this is exactly what we're doing. You're giving me a platform to be able to talk about this yoga and tarot and Reiki. So this is a new beginning. The star is a new beginning. It's the moment where you give back to yourself. You allow yourself to receive these opportunities, and you allow yourself to give opportunities. There's a if you notice, she's she's
Good.
pouring the water out,
What?
but then
Ah.
in the other hand, she's holding water. So as much as she's giving, as much as you're giving out of your cup, you're also receiving. So this is exactly what we're doing. You're giving me a platform and I'm giving you something to talk about. And this card fell out of the deck. I'm not being a prophet. I'm not telling you tomorrow you're going to eat fish and then you're going to go in your car and then you're going to go to university. I'm not that there's no there's no sense of magic, prophecy, future telling with
Hmm.
the art of reading tarot cards. It's simply an extension of energy. And the way that I like to do the tarot sessions is right after a Reiki session,
Hmm.
because that energy that I've harnessed, that energy, those messages that I'm getting from their guides. And if I pick up a deck of cards and if I start shuffling, and with that energy that I've already spent an hour with the client, can you imagine how accurate their picking of the cards will be for whatever it is that they're going through in their life? And there are different forms of tarot reading. So there are different spreads. You can bring you can put your cards in a row where it's three of them like this.
Hmm.
You can put where you ask one question, you ask another question, and then you have the answer here. You can
Hmm.
have only a one, you ask one question, and it's almost never a yes or no. It's mostly something like, how do I overcome my shyness? And then you pick a card and it's the Fool. And for a question like, how do I overcome my shyness? The Fool essentially tells you, go for it. Don't be afraid. Be like the fool at the beginning of a journey. Have the confidence of a fool at the beginning of a journey and just go. So even a question as simple as, how can I overcome my shyness? The Fool. So these cards are simply an extension of energy. There's a reason you pick the card that you pick. That's what I'm
Hmm.
saying. So there's no coincidence as to which card you're going to pick. And it's a really big deck. Like these are just the what's called the major arcanas. These are the universal cards. And then you have the other cards that signify emotions, so they signify emotions, money, speech, and ambition, and like, fire, power, and things like that. So it's simply the art of reading energy through pictures.
That's so beautifully explained. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Back when this friend of mine, I wouldn't say a friend of mine, but this batchmate of mine who used to do this tarot reading in India, she did not have these cards, the one that you have. She had different cards, although the photos were same, the Joker and
Yeah.
the ones that you talked about. So how do you, I mean, how are your cards different from the cards that I have seen? And does the difference in card have a significance? Because these look very much authentic. It's something that feels like it has been passed down from generations to generations, and
Yeah, I'm so glad.
it carries a lot of
I'm
history.
It does. And I'm so glad that you say that because these are my favorite deck of cards. I absolutely love the way that it looks on the outside. I think the painting on the inside is absolutely beautiful. If I were to show you another one, I mean, this one, look how beautiful this is.
Yes, it's indeed beautiful, beautiful.
To, to be honest, it doesn't matter. It's simply a choice of art. And this is
Mm,
the kind of art that I found that I could relate to. I also have a traditional deck. I think in total I have about 8 different decks, and they all look completely different.
different.
Completely different. However, for example, this is my favorite card in the entire deck. It's called the Chariot. So the Chariot signifies victory. And if you look at him, he looks like somebody who's just conquered whatever it is that's in the back. So he's conquered and he's victorious from the past and he's running forward. So this is a card of projection. This is a
Mm,
card of victory into the future. So a card like this can be symbolized in 1,000 different ways. The traditional
mm,
deck has a Roman gladiator with 2 sphinx on the side. So it completely depends on the artist. It depends on the way that the art is brought. It just depends on how you like it portrayed. And I am known to not do anything traditionally. So my deck of cards isn't the traditional deck of cards. The 6 others that I have in my room aren't traditional either. I have one traditional deck of cards that I don't think I've ever used.
and where do you like, are these cards available to on Amazon to purchase,
Yeah.
or it's passed down by the teacher who you learn from?
No, it's not actually. So funny you say that. I think if I were to ever teach tarot to somebody, I would pick one person that I trust and a person that wants to learn from me, and I would probably pass down the cards to them. I grew up in my childhood with a real gypsy, actually, in Romania, and she would read cards. She very recently passed away, and I don't know where her deck of cards are, but I want them. And I think that it's because she, I'm doing this almost in her honor. It was when she passed away that I discovered the lady that I learned from. And it was almost as if she was trying to tell me to continue this art of tarot and to continue the art of helping people decipher and understand their stresses and their issues. But you can buy these cards on Amazon. All the decks that I have are from Amazon. You
Mm.
can also buy them in Kinokuniya, the bookstore in Dubai Mall. You can, they're completely available in the UAE. So it's something that you can easily find.
Mm. And to people who think that it is a fortune telling thing, or it's tells you the future, etc., how would you deal with that answer? I mean, that question or that doubt.
Yeah, I think that every tarot reader will tell you whatever it is that you want to hear. And I
Mm,
think that those are the type of tarot readers that you don't want to go to. I
mm,
would recommend going to somebody who explains to you that this isn't fortune telling. This
mm,
isn't destiny changing. I'm not changing your destiny. I cannot see into your future and I'm telling you to go this way. There is no such thing. It's an extension of energy. It's the art of reading coincidence. picking a card may seem like a coincidence, but in reality, it's not. And I think that for somebody who goes to a tarot reader to tell the future is probably what Hollywood has taught us. And there is no such thing, I don't think, as reading tarot cards to know what the future is going to look like. The tarot cards are symbolism of your energy today. If you come to me today with an issue and I read cards for you, tomorrow you can come back and I'll do the same spread, so the same sort of method, but the cards will be completely different because today you've come to me with a different energy. You've come to me with a different issue. So if it is fortune telling, can you imagine how popular it would be?
Right.
And it's not. It's not, because it's a form of healing. It's a form of self-healing, self-discovery, self-development. And that's why a lot of people don't go to it, because it's frightening. It's frightening to know that your energy is so powerful that it picks out a card that tells you exactly what you're feeling and exactly what you're doing.
Interesting.
I wouldn't call it prophetic. And for those that do think it's prophecy, I think Hollywood has done a great job at making it sound like we're all gypsies and we're all witches, and we can tell the future and we can make people fall in love with you, and we can't do any of that. It's just an extension of energy.
Hmm. No, I was, I mean, during this full conversation we have had, and the last time also when we talked, the things that you are involved in right now, it kind of pushed me in the same direction to presume that you might be a gypsy, because I've watched it at the Peaky Blinders and everything. So, and I think I learned it from there only that gypsies are into this kind of art, craft, and everything. So, what is your take on this? And like, how originally are you gypsy?
So I think that the only part of me that is gypsy is probably my hair. Um, I take pride in somebody calling me a gypsy, and I think that maybe a lot of people don't. And I think that in reality, it's probably used as a derogatory term. But
Hmm.
being called a gypsy simply means that I have magical powers and I'm connected to the universe in a way that normal people aren't. And I believe that I am. So if that means that I'm a gypsy, then I take that with pride.
Wow, that's a wonderful answer, because even on the internet it is sold as a derogatory term.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine that that's what it says. But in my experience and in my life, um, it's I think it's a beautiful culture. It's a I mean, I grew up with, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Esmeralda was a gypsy in the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the cartoon. And she was the most beautiful Disney character I've ever seen, and I wanted to be her. So I've always had a connection to that part of life, that's the spirituality part, the art,
Hmm.
just the art, reading art and understanding people's energy and being able to see colors and being able to feel spirits and feel energy. It's a gift. It's a gift, and I'm not going to hide away from it. And if that labels me as a gypsy, then that's it's an honor. It's an honor to be called a gypsy, to be able to come across as somebody who has such mystical powers. That's it's not a derogatory term for me at all.
I'm glad you see it that way.
I
Um,
do.
Now, Amira, this is the last part of the conversation that I want to dig into. Um, and I think the formation of the question itself will take a lot of built up. Reason being that in the initial part of the conversation you said that you are half Arab and half Romanian, number one, and you have been practicing both these things. You are a Muslim Arab, and I say this specifically Muslim Arab because for the first time when I joined the university for my master's program, for the first time I heard someone is an Arab, but she is a Catholic.
Christian.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. So
yes.
that was like mind blowing for me that how is this possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you manage to balance religion which is your father's side. At the same time, you practice these things, yoga, which is not traditionally, Arab, but yet you're carrying the values of your mother.
So I think that that's a really good question, and I give that credit to my parents. So my mother is still a Christian. My father never forced her to convert. She never converted for him. He
Mm,
respected her religion, so there were times when Ramadan and Christmas happened to come at the same time. We would have a Christmas tree and then iftar right next to the Christmas tree, and then Christmas dinner right after iftar. So I lived with both religions in my house. I was never forced to pick one or the other. In fact, I used to read the Quran and then go to bed and then do the cross before I'd go to bed. And because to me it was one and the same. I mean, God was God, and essentially both religions tell you do no harm, don't lie, don't steal, don't be proud. And both of them teach you that. And yoga teaches you the same thing. So, and Buddhism teaches you the same thing. So, in reality, I never actually felt, and I still don't feel that push and pull of, oh, but this is haram, or this, you're doing yoga, it's haram, or you're doing yoga in shorts, it's haram, or you're reading tarot, that's haram, or I don't connect with it. I don't relate to it because my intention isn't to speak to Satan and ask him how to read the cards. My
mm,
intention isn't, again, to worship Satan when I'm doing a yoga flow. So I refuse to let the ignorance of others and the way that society perceives these things to be a reason for me not to do them. And I think that I truly believe that Islam is a very forgiving religion and it's a very open religion. And one of the elements of it is intention. There's a big part of Islam that relies on the intention of the doer. And if you're performing an act and that act happened to hurt somebody and cause them pain, you may not be judged for that because your intention was pure. Your intention was to help, but it just so happened that somebody got hurt because of it. So it's not a punitive religion. It's not a religion where you are punished for thinking a certain way or doing a
mm,
certain thing. It's the intention behind it. And my intention in performing Reiki is to heal. My intention of reading tarot is to help somebody decipher their thoughts through imagery and through pictures and through interpretation of what certain elements in the pictures mean. And I don't have the intention of being prophetic. I mean, when you ask me how many people's lives I've changed, I completely deviated from the question because it's not my intention isn't to change lives. My intention is to help heal. And if I found Reiki and if I found tarot, I also believe in destiny. And that's also a big part of Islam. This is my destiny. It was my destiny to find Reiki. It was my
mm,
destiny to find tarot. It was my destiny to teach through yoga. And it's a way for me to connect to people. It's a way for me to help people. And it is my destiny to do what it is that I'm doing. And that part is a religious part.
mm. So this is how you manage the conflict between religion and the practices that you are into.
Yes, I think so. I mean, obviously, it's difficult, and it's
Mm,
difficult because being a child of two different cultures and two different ethnicities, growing up in Dubai, which is a little hot pot of different cultures and ethnicities, it becomes very difficult to actually identify yourself with something. So I don't identify as an Arab. I also don't identify as a Romanian. Um, I relate to the notion that I am a citizen of Earth, and I practice Islam and I pray 5 times a day, but I also will do Reiki just after I've prayed, or I'll do Reiki after, I'll pray after I do Reiki, and I'll thank God for the gift of Reiki because I'm able to perform something that is healing. So it's there was a little bit of conflict with the tarot, but
Mm,
once I realized that there is no prophecy, this isn't looking into a crystal ball and seeing your future, and there's no such thing. So for when I understood it better and when I learned it better and I realized it was just simply interpretation of symbols and imagery, that's when I thought, well, I'm not worshiping Satan. I'm not doing anything that's, contra religion.
mm,
It's just which is why I call it the art of tarot, because
mm.
it's not the prophetic reading of cards. It's not like reading a coffee cup, when you have like coffee in the
Yeah,
it's not,
coffee
I mean,
leaves thing.
it might be something like that. I don't know. I've never had that done. Or tea leaves or
Mm,
palms. When somebody reads your palm that you're going to live till 33, you're going to have 3 kids. I feel like this is a little more prophetic than me saying to you, don't fear judgment, for example.
okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, which one of the
Mm,
two of them is more prophetic? So it just depends, and I think it's a cultural thing. I really don't think you're right. It is a sensitive topic. I personally don't find a reason to hold any sort of conflict. If I bring up the issue of tarot, or if I bring up the fact that I read tarot to my family or to other Arabs or other Muslims, and they simply step back and they say, "Oh my God, please no, this is haram," then okay, fine, and I put it away and we're
mm.
done.
Yeah,
So I'm
respecting
not
other
going
people's
to.
choice as well.
Exactly. Just like I'm respecting my choice, I obviously have to respect their choice. I'm not going to start fighting with them and creating this bit. Okay, fine. You're not comfortable. You're not comfortable here. How was your day
Mm,
today? So it's I respect you, you respect me. That's about, and then let God, Tupac, let God judge me and wait until I'm up there and him and I have words. And then when God tells me you shouldn't have done this, then I'll know, okay, well, I shouldn't have done it. But until then, I'm going to continue doing it.
beautifully explained. Amira, I think we have had such a fantastic conversation. I got to
Yeah.
learn a lot about everything that you've spoken about. And I'm glad that we could do this. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for having the courage to do this. And there's no such thing as a coincidence. If you ever need anything with school, if you ever need any practical advice, you interned at the firm that I work at. So, I mean, honestly, no coincidences. So please extend a hand, and I'm right here.